I stared at my phone screen, refreshing my messages over and over, hoping maybe I'd miss something. 30 years old. A milestone birthday. And not a single call from my mom, my dad, or my two brothers. The only text I had was from my coworker, Amy, who barely knew my middle name. By 7 p.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the cake I'd bought for myself. A single candle flickered in the quiet. My apartment felt too big, too empty, and way too silent for a night that was supposed to be full of laughter. I finally called my mother. She picked up on the third ring, and I could hear clinking glasses and music in the background. "Oh, sweetie, we're all at Jake's new house tonight. We'll celebrate you later, okay?" Later. Like I was some optional afterthought. So I grabbed my purse, my heels, and I made a decision. If my family didn't think I was worth showing up for, I'd show up for myself. Have you ever been forgotten by the very people who were supposed to love you most? If you'd asked me 5 years ago whether my family and I were close, I would have smiled and said, of course. We're the Millers. We always show up for each other. It was practically a family motto, something my dad liked to say whenever we loaded into the car for a cousin's graduation or a neighbor's wedding. I grew up in a little town in Oregon where the Millers were known for being the kind of family that filled an entire pew at church on Sundays. My mom, Patricia, was the type of woman who baked apple pies for the school fundraiser without being asked, and my dad, Robert, was the guy who fixed her fence if a storm knocked it over. I was the middle child, sandwiched between my older brother, Jake, and my younger brother, Tyler. Jake was the golden boy, the star quarterback in high school, the one who got a brand new Ford truck for his 18th birthday. Tyler was the baby, the one mom called my little miracle after 3 miscarriages. And me? I was dependable. I didn't break rules, I got decent grades, I helped with laundry, I volunteered at the library. Looking back, I think that's where the cracks started, quiet ones that I didn't notice at the time. Some of my favorite memories are of summers in our backyard. Dad would set up a long picnic table, Mom would make her famous lemonade, and Jake would grill burgers like he was auditioning for a cooking show. Tyler and I would chase fireflies until our legs ached. And birthdays? Birthdays were sacred in the Miller household. Mom had this tradition. The birthday person would wake up to a kitchen decorated in their favorite color. For Jake, it was blue streamers and balloons. For Tyler, green. For me, it was always yellow. Sunshine yellow napkins, yellow flowers from the garden, even a lemon cake with cream cheese frosting. She used to kiss the top of my head and say, "No matter how old you get, you're my sunshine girl." That's the thing about family traditions. They make you believe some things are unshakable. When I left for college in Seattle, things were different. Not bad, just less connected. Jake had moved out by then, working construction and saving for his first house. Tyler was in high school, busy with soccer and a band of friends that seemed to live in our basement. Phone calls from my parents came less often, replaced by short texts. "Hope you're doing well," or "Don't forget to check the oil in your car." Still, I came home every Thanksgiving and Christmas, always bringing small, thoughtful gifts. My mom would hug me like I'd been gone for years, and my dad would give me one of those firm, wordless squeezes that said more than he knew how to. But there were moments, little ones, when I felt like I was slipping down some invisible list. Like the year Jake got engaged, and every conversation revolved around his wedding plans. Or the Christmas when Tyler totaled his car, and my parents spent the whole holiday helping him sort it out, barely noticing I'd been promoted at work. In my 20s, I built my own little family, not through blood, but through friendship. Amy, my coworker, who later sent me that lonely birthday text, was one of them. Then there was Melissa, my college roommate, who could read my mood in the tilt of my head. And Daniel, my first serious boyfriend. Daniel was the kind of guy who noticed everything. If I mentioned once that I liked peonies, he'd surprise me with a bouquet the next week. If I had a tough day, he'd make dinner and light candles without me asking. For a while, I thought he was the one. We talked about marriage, even looked at tiny houses on Zillow for fun. But life pulled us in different directions. He got a job in New York, I was rooted in Seattle, and neither of us wanted to drag the other across the country. We parted with tears, but no bitterness. Every time I went home, it became more obvious. Jake and Tyler were the center of the family universe. Jake with his new house, his new wife, his new baby. Tyler with his sports victories and, later, his dream of opening a small auto shop. I celebrated them genuinely. I brought gifts, I took photos. I cheered from the sidelines. But when it was my turn, my milestones felt smaller in their eyes. The year I turned 28, my birthday celebration, was tacked onto the end of Tyler's graduation party. Mom brought out a store-bought cake after most guests had left, stuck 2 candles in it, and said, "Make a wish," as if the thought hadn't just crossed her mind 5 minutes before. I laughed it off. Because that's what you do when you want to believe the people you love would never really forget you. When COVID hit, I barely saw my parents for over a year. We had Zoom calls at first, but then those faded. Jake's family became their bubble, and Tyler moved back home for a while. I understood it made sense logistically, but it was the first time I felt like an outsider in my own family. By the time things opened up again, the habit of being left out had already taken root. Invitations to family dinners came late or not at all. I told myself it wasn't personal, but deep down a small voice whispered, "They've just gotten used to life without you." So when my 30th birthday started creeping closer, I had this tiny hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd surprise me. That they'd remember the yellow balloons, the lemon cake, the way Mom used to sing, "You Are My Sunshine," in the kitchen while the coffee brewed. I thought turning 30 would be a full-circle moment, a chance to feel like I mattered again. But I had no idea that the silence on that day would feel like the loudest betrayal of all. It's not like my 30th birthday was the first time I'd felt invisible. If I'm honest, I think it started years ago, in tiny, almost imperceptible ways. Like the Christmas when I was 16 and asked for a used guitar so I could learn to play. My younger brother, Jake, got a brand new gaming console. I got a sweater. My mom smiled and said, "Well, you've always been the practical one." Or the summer I graduated college. I worked 2 jobs to pay my rent and student loans while my older brother, Michael, moved back home rent-free to figure out his next steps. Mom would bring him plates of food to his room while telling me, "I know we can't help you financially right now." Back then, I told myself it wasn't personal. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they assumed I was fine. But over the years, little cracks widened. There were family dinners I found out about only after seeing the photos on Facebook. Group texts where plans were made without me. Even when I did show up, it felt like I was background noise. I'd walk into a room and conversations would dim, not in a dramatic way, but in that polite, surface-level, "Oh hey, you're here" tone. They'd ask about my job in passing but lean in with genuine interest when Jake talked about his business or Michael's vacation plans. I remember one Sunday barbecue when I brought a homemade peach pie. I'd spent hours on it. My dad cut a slice, took a bite, and said, "It's good. Not like your Aunt Linda's, but good." Then he went back to talking to Michael about his fantasy football team. That was the rhythm, me offering, them overlooking. The moment that really stuck with me happened 2 years before my 30th birthday. I had just gotten a promotion at work, a big one. I called my mom, excited to share. She congratulated me, then in the same breath said, "Speaking of good news, Jake just bought a new truck. Isn't that amazing?" It was like my wins were appetizers before someone else's main course. I tried to talk to them about it once. I remember sitting at Mom's kitchen table, heart pounding. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not really part of this family," I said. She frowned, put down her coffee mug, and laughed lightly. "Oh, honey, you're being dramatic. You've always been so sensitive." There it was, the shutdown, the casual dismissal that made me feel childish for wanting to matter. By the time my 30th birthday rolled around, I'd learned to expect less. But somewhere deep down, I still hoped maybe, just maybe, they'd surprise me. I didn't know yet that the surprise was how far their absence would go. The day started like any other, except it wasn't. It was my 30th birthday. I told myself, don't expect anything, just get through it. But deep down, I still hoped for a miracle. By noon, my phone was still empty except for ads and a "your bill is due" reminder from my electric company. No call from Mom. No text from Dad. Not even a lazy happy birthday for my brothers. I tried distracting myself. Cleaned the apartment. Did laundry. Made coffee I didn't even want. But every tick of the clock made the silence louder. Around 5 p.m., I thought, maybe they're planning a surprise. Maybe they're all going to jump out and shout happy birthday, like in those cheesy commercials. I even put on makeup, a soft wine-colored lipstick, and my favorite black dress, just in case. At 6:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. My heart actually skipped. I snatched it up. It was a photo in the family group chat. Everyone was smiling around a massive outdoor table, champagne glasses raised, fairy lights strung in the trees. In the middle of the photo was a giant cake, not for me, but for my younger brother Jake's housewarming. The caption from Mom read, "So proud of you, Jake. What a beautiful night." I froze, the smile I'd been holding onto slipping right off my face. My ears started ringing, like someone had shoved cotton inside them. I typed, "It's my birthday." Then deleted it. Then typed it again. Then erased it again. My throat felt tight, and my fingers shook. 10 minutes later, I couldn't take it anymore. I hit call on Mom's contact. She picked up, her voice already laughing before she even said hello.
Oh,
"Hey, honey." I could hear music, plates clinking, and Jake's voice in the background telling a story that made everyone roar with laughter. "Hi, Mom. Did you forget what day it is?" My voice cracked on the last word. There was a pause just a second too long. "Oh, sweetheart, we were going to do something for you this weekend. Tonight's just for Jake, you know? He finally bought the house and you couldn't even call me?"
my tone was sharper now.
I could feel my face getting hot, tears threatening to fall, but not yet winning. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. We'll make it up to you," she said, and then, "I swear to God," she laughed. That laugh, it was like someone punched a hole straight through my chest. I hung up before she could finish. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. I stared at the little cake on my counter, still untouched, and suddenly it felt pathetic. Something in me broke, but not in the quiet, crumpled way. It broke loud. It broke fierce. I grabbed my coat, shoved my wallet into my purse, and walked out the door. My heels clicked against the cold pavement, each step harder than the last. 10 minutes later, I was sitting alone in the most expensive restaurant in the city. White tablecloths. Crystal glasses. A sommelier explaining wine pairings I didn't even understand. I ordered the most extravagant tasting menu they had, 7 courses, each one plated like a piece of art, and a bottle of champagne that cost more than my month's rent. With every bite, I felt the sting of being forgotten. With every glass, I told myself I was taking back the night. If my family couldn't honor me, I'd damn well honor myself. By dessert, the bill was over $1,000. I signed it without flinching. It wasn't about the money. It was about the statement. When I walked out, the cold air hit my face, and I realized something. I'd never feel the same about my family again. Something had shifted permanently. And it all started with one empty birthday. It was 2 weeks after my birthday when my mother called, pretending nothing had happened. "Hey, honey," she said in that breezy voice. "We're all getting together at Jake's this Saturday. Bring dessert, will you?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the clearest proof yet that they thought I would always show up, no matter how invisible they made me feel. "No, Mom," I said, calm but steady. "I won't be coming." Silence. Then that edge in her voice. "What's this about now?" I took a breath. "This is about you, all of you, skipping my 30th birthday like it meant nothing. No call. No visit. You didn't even pretend to care." From somewhere in the background, I heard Jake mutter, "Oh, here we go." That was it. I didn't just want them to hear me, I wanted them to feel every word. So on Saturday, instead of bringing dessert, I brought something else. I walked into Jake's living room holding a small white box. Everyone turned, surprised to see me. Inside the box wasn't cake. It was the printed receipt from my $1,000 solo birthday dinner. I placed it right in the middle of the coffee table. "This," I said, my voice carrying more steel than they'd ever heard from me, is what I did the night my family decided I wasn't worth celebrating. My father frowned. You spent $1,000 on dinner? That's ridiculous. No, I said, looking him dead in the eye. What's ridiculous is thinking I'll keep shrinking myself to fit into a family that only notices me when I'm serving them. Mom tried to step in. Sweetie, you know we didn't mean… I held up my hand. Stop. You meant exactly what you did. And I'm done making excuses for all of you. The room was thick with tension. I pulled an envelope from my purse and set it next to the receipt. Inside was a photo, me at 5 years old, sitting alone at the school lunch table because Mom forgot to pack my lunch that day. I had kept that photo for years without realizing it was my first lesson in being overlooked. This, I said softly, tapping the photo, was the beginning. My birthday was just the latest chapter, and I'm closing the book. I turned to leave, but before I stepped out, I looked back at them one last time. You don't get to call me dramatic. You don't get to say I'm overreacting. You had 30 years to make me feel like I mattered. And you failed. I walked out into the crisp evening air, my heels clicking on the driveway, feeling strangely lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I didn't feel like the little girl waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. The next morning, I woke up to the sunlight spilling across my bedroom floor and my phone lighting up with a flood of notifications.
Not from my family.
From Facebook. Apparently, someone, probably my cousin Lindsay, had posted photos from last night's family dinner. They were all there. My parents, both my brothers, their girlfriends, my aunt and uncle, even Grandma Jo, who barely leaves her house anymore. In the photos, they were all holding champagne glasses, smiling wide, celebrating Jake's promotion at his new real estate firm. And there it was, the same date as my birthday, stamped in the corner of every single photo. I didn't cry right away. Instead, I just stared at my phone, numb, scrolling through the pictures like I was looking at strangers. My family's faces looked unfamiliar to me, the same smiles I'd grown up chasing, now frozen in moments I wasn't invited to be part of. That numbness only broke when I got a text from my younger brother, Ethan, around noon. Hey, sorry about last night. It was kind of last minute. We'll do something small for you this weekend. Something small. For my 30th birthday. Like a consolation prize for the kid who didn't make the team. The more I thought about it, the more the flashbacks came rushing in. The childhood birthday where my cake was combined with Jake's because his was only a week before mine, the high school graduation where they left halfway through my party to attend his baseball game, the college send-off where Dad gave him a new laptop but told me, "You'll be fine with your old one."
This wasn't just about last night. This was a pattern.
30 years of being the afterthought. I didn't answer Ethan's text. Instead, I muted the family group chat. My apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of my fridge, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for stepping back. That evening, my neighbor Renee, a retired nurse who always checked in on me, knocked on my door. She handed me a plate of still warm chocolate chip cookies. Thought you might like these. 30 is a big deal, she said softly. And it hit me. The only people who'd acknowledged my day were people who didn't share my blood. Over the next week, I noticed who reached out and who didn't. My best friend Maya called me every night just to talk. My coworker Amy left a card on my desk.
But for my family?
Nothing but silence. That silence gave me room to think. I realized I'd been mourning two things: the absence of a real celebration for my 30th and the family I thought I had. I started deleting old voicemails from my mom, the ones where she'd cancel plans at the last minute. I put away the framed family photos on my bookshelf, replacing them with pictures from my travels, from nights out with friends, from moments where I'd been genuinely happy. It felt like packing away an old chapter, one I'd been holding onto out of obligation. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. It's strange how healing doesn't come in one big, dramatic moment. It slips in quietly, like sunlight through the blinds after weeks of gray skies. The morning after my solo $1,000 dinner, I woke up without that familiar heaviness in my chest. Instead of scrolling through social media to see what my family had posted, I brewed my own coffee, lit a candle, and sat by the window. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to check if they remembered me. That week, I signed up for therapy. Dr. Morgan, a warm, patient woman with kind eyes, helped me untangle years of quiet disappointments and overlooked birthdays. She asked me something that stopped me cold. Why do you keep waiting for the same people to treat you differently? It was like she just opened a window in a stuffy room. I stopped waiting. Instead, I started building. I reconnected with Leah, my college roommate, who still remembered how I liked my tea and laughed at all the wrong moments in movies. I joined a local women's business network, and on Tuesday nights, I hosted family dinners in my apartment, not with my blood relatives, but with people who actually showed up. The first night, there were just 3 of us, passing around pasta in mismatched bowls. By the 4th month, I had 12 people crammed into my living room, eating takeout on the floor, talking over each other, laughing so hard someone nearly choked on their wine. I started celebrating my milestones without apology. New job? I bought myself flowers. Finished a big project? I booked a weekend trip. And my 31st birthday? I rented out a small rooftop downtown, dressed in a red silk dress, and toasted to a year of finally showing up for myself. My chosen family was there, every single one of them, cheering louder than I'd ever heard. The empty ache I once carried wasn't gone completely, but it had transformed. It wasn't a wound anymore. It was a scar, proof that I'd survived, grown, and built something better. I realized something that night as the city lights flickered below. I may not be able to rewrite my family's choices, but I can write the rest of my own story. If you've stayed with me through this story, I want you to hear me now, not as some stranger on the internet, but as a woman who knows exactly what it feels like to be left out, to feel like your worth depends on someone else's attention. That night, sitting in that 5-star restaurant with $1,000 dinner in front of me, I learned something powerful. We spend so much of our lives waiting for people to show up for us, that we forget we can show up for ourselves. Family isn't always the people who share your last name. Family is the friend who remembers the small things. Family is the coworker who checks in after a long day. Family is you, choosing to honor yourself even when nobody else claps. So if you're watching this and you've been overlooked, abandoned, or made to feel invisible, I want you to know this. Your value does not shrink just because someone failed to see it. You are still worth celebrating. Every single day. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to create your own happiness because no one else showed up? Your story matters here. We are more than viewers and strangers, we're a community that listens. If this message reached you, like this video so more people can find it. Subscribe if you need a place where your feelings won't be dismissed. And remember, you are worth the candle, the cake, the dinner, and the love, even if you're the only one at the table.